Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome. It's another edition of Haberman and MIDDLEKAUFF. I'm Guy. That's John. And you might be watching this live on YouTube, listening to it after the fact on the podcast, or watching it after the fact on YouTube, however you consume. Good to have you.
Good to be heard. Good to be seen.
You can check out the podcast if you're watching the YouTube down in the description below. You can check out the YouTube if you're listening to the podcast in the show notes as well. And if you ever saunter over to YouTube, holler at your boys just by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. Half of you watching this video are not subscribed. That's what the data tells us. We also know your social security numbers. But hit that subscribe button. Thank you very much.
If you ever have someone run your credit, I have had a bombardment of spam calls today that had to be like some of the biggest wars in the history of this world must have felt like. I mean, it's every 10 seconds I look down and it's a call. Getting text messages about refinances, about credit. It's just they're coming from all angles of the financial world, all because your boy's credit was run, and it's unlike anything I've ever seen.
How quickly after the credit run did the calls start?
It's a good question. I don't know, but
it wasn't yesterday.
It's been in the last couple days. Just doing some, financial, getting cleared for a mortgage just to be ready if something were to happen.
Yep.
And it is.
But I'm saying,
these fucking people.
You think within like 24 hours you started getting phone calls?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It's pretty wild. Now Maria says, like, when they sell a home, she gets 1 million calls from the people, like every industry surrounding a home. So you buy a home, security people, 10 security companies will call her the next day. Maintenance people, you name it. Like everything that goes into a home that you potentially could need, you go on this listing. All of our information now is just everywhere, and the fucking phone number. Like, I'm sorry, guys, the cold call's dead. You text me, you'd have a better shot. And I've gotten 10 text messages today.
With the name that you can, hey, this is Leah.
Yeah, those type deal.
Yeah, very personal.
Yeah. We can get you $500K at this. It's like, I don't even asking for, what are you guys even talking about? But they don't know. They're just prepared.
They're shooting 1,000 shots a day, right? And you need one reply.
Fuck. A lot of cold callers out there. I respect it. I do respect the cold calling profession.
I remember
whatever profession you're in, if that's part of your job, I'm not acting like it's. I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, but I'm not giving you my cell phone number for 15% off. They do that one now. It used to be you just put an email in, you get 20% off first time purchase. Now it's like, put your email in for 20% off. You put the email in, they're like, great, you're one step away. Now give us your cell phone number for 20%. And I'm not doing that.
The reality is they all have your cell phone number.
But they don't, because these people want it.
Yeah.
So somebody doesn't have it yet. You're right.
More people want it.
More people want it. There's nothing. You throw somebody out, you answer a phone call from an unknown number, John, you will shock whoever is calling you if it's a real person.
It's
like the old George Costanza, or the Seinfeld, like, I was calling, I was hoping to get the machine. I didn't think you were going to answer. I just wanted to say, sorry, I missed you.
I know. Someone left me a message yesterday. It's like someone that I definitely would have talked to / they would have texted me. I would have texted them back. But like 3 weeks later, I checked voicemails, and I was thinking, like, in 2023, who's leaving voicemails? Because they're like, you don't pick up, just send the text. Like that is the modern day, the 2023. Right. See, I'm just another one.
And if I know you have my number, I'm not leaving a message. Like, he'll see I called. Oh my God.
It's never going to stop.
You need a new cell phone number. Or a second cell phone.
Mortgage brokers are desperate, especially went up another quarter point today. So they're clawing for every penny.
Everyone's just trying to eat. I heard you ran your credit.
Do you need anything? A couch,
coffee,
a car, a home? I'll finance whatever you need.
You're 3 states over, no problem.
It's like, holy shit, man! I just want to watch the Warriors game. Leave me alone.
Yep. By the way, John, a promo code ham out there. I had an emergency round of Pebble yesterday because the U.S. Open.
How many times did you play that course now? 5?
Twice.
2 more than me.
And both times for free. And U.S. Open, women's U.S. Open is going to be there. I got the emergency invite. They clearly hadn't filled enough. The invite I got last Wednesday said RSVP by April 1st. Obviously, we're almost to May 1st. But I was happy to say yes and play. And I got the caddy, which I recommend to anybody, especially if you're anyway, the caddy, promo code HAM. He texted me last night. He said, hey, if you know anybody playing, let them know to hit me up. So ask for Eric, promo code HAM. I don't know what it'll get you, but listener of the pod now. So
what's your favorite part of your new home course at Pebble?
Oh, I don't know, John. 4, I think, is underrated. Hard to beat 7.
4 is a
I
short
think
par
8.
4.
Yeah.
I've always liked 4 as again just a spectator who walks the
Straight,
course.
very narrow mouth, small green. I think of the
6.
Of the
did
6,
you
7,
get
8,
did you get over the 6, the hill and 2, or you go in the water?
Fuck no.
What'd you do?
Go in the, I went fairway. I went left sand, and that trying to go from that bunker up the hill is just death.
So what did you get out and then go over?
Eventually, I got out, but the sand was a problem for your boy.
Yeah.
But of the 6, 7, 8, remember we sat on 6 for a long time in 19 at the PGA, watched Phil lose his ball in the rough. I think 8, 7 is obviously iconic, but I think 8 is, the shot over the cliff. Like, that's an incredible hole.
Remember Jordan almost kind of fell.
Almost
He hit it
went
right
in.
at the edge of the cliff. Yeah.
Because it's only like 235 to the cliff from the tee. We played the when the women's tees. Back a little from the whites and the blues, which is also where I spend most of my time. So it's a long hole.
I think 9's a solid hole. I think 8, 9, that little stretch right there by the water.
Yep.
Again, never played, just seen it from afar.
You've walked it. You know it better than me, honestly.
I have no clue what like even 11 and 12 look like. Never been back there.
11.
Feels like that's a part of the course that kind of gets lost. You know,
Yeah.
the back corner.
Yeah. Yeah, I think 12. I guess there's a big rental house right by 12. The caddy was saying, so they weren't yesterday, but a lot of people hanging out there. 12 is 12's par 5, right? 12 a par 5? No.
No, because 14's a par 5 kind of uphill hard
14's
hole.
the par 5 I'm thinking of. Yeah. Okay.
14, that's when you kind of come back into view because then
Yeah.
14, 15, 16's a solid hole, 17 the par 3. How'd you do on 17? What do the ladies play that bad boy at?
They played it up. I don't know what the yard. I don't. The wind was pumping, so it played at 215 from in front of the cart
right
path.
into you. Yeah.
You know how there's that path right there by the 4th tee box where we sat and watched
Yeah.
the 4th. In front of that path was playing at 215 yesterday because the wind was.
Gotcha.
So that was a layup in front of the bunker for me. Not on purpose, just
It's a hard hole.
couldn't get it there.
Yeah.
HR says to us, we can start with this actually. What did you guys think of Jordan Poole's shot at the end of game 1, Warriors-Lakers? I actually have some. Can I tell you my Warriors-Laker take to start this podcast today before we get to some Niner stuff?
Go ahead.
I think it's good the Lakers got game 1 to avoid the sweep. I think the series is over. I think the Warriors are going to. I'm actually shocked. I'm pretty confident that the Warriors have this. I don't know if you listened to I was listening to all 82. They're like, well, you just got to go, or plus minus, just got to go small. I think you got the best that deloading has to offer.
He did look pretty good.
He looked incredible.
Yeah.
I thought Poole was back to himself.
Hit some sweet shots.
Yeah, I think the Lakers' best chance to guard is with Jared Vanderbilt on the floor, but they got to take him off to play off. They can't guard the perimeter. I think the Warriors are in really good shape for losing game 1. And I didn't have a big problem with Poole's shot. Like, it's a wide open shot. Would I have loved for him to like crow hop dribble into one? Sure. It's a wide open shot. He just hit the game trying 3. I don't understand all the like, what the fuck is Steve Kerr talking about saying it's a good shot. I didn't have a problem with it. What'd you think?
You know, I don't pretend to be Phil Jackson now when you terms of like breaking down shots because people shoot from the fucking logo now, especially this team. I mean, Clay takes 10 shots a game that are just like, what the hell is he doing? And he's been doing it for a decade. Steph, I don't even count, but I think you look all over the league. I saw Draymond said, like, in a perfect world, like, close a little gap, right? Close the space, take a step.
Yeah.
But he was like, he'd hit 6 3-pointers. Like, he had been on fire. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's just that's 2023 NBA. I think the bigger issue for the Lakers, and listen, people think I hate the Lakers. I do. I don't personally hate LeBron, though I don't count the bubble championship.
Not same.
I'll be the first to acknowledge he's one of the great players I've ever seen in any sport. I'm 38 years old. Both of my knees are hurting. I have it on one of my to-do lists to hit up this knee guy in the area to just maybe get a couple MRI, just get them checked out. Mm-hmm. Once you get older, like I'm sorry, what Tom was able to do, a huge part of that is Tom didn't have to move, right? Did not have to move. It's like the way Aaron has played, is he going to be able to run around for like 3 more years, or is like his game slowly going to change? Like you can play longer. Yeah, you can play longer in 23 because health and training and rest, but our rest now is probably less about just like drinking beers for 6 months and then getting back and it's different. So you have a huge advantages. But your athleticism slips. And to me, he's a shell of himself athletically. And I was watching some of Draymond's post-game pod because no one breaks it down and gets 300,000 views before you even wake up like Draymond after a playoff game. He's like, I don't remember ever playing LeBron where he just stands there off the ball. He wasn't taking a shot. He's like, they just played like LeBron just played like Klay Thompson, just off to the side, kind of. I mean, it was kind of why he can't move around like he used to. He's. If you told me that LeBron was in peak LeBron form with that version of AD, the Warriors would lose, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but he's fucking our age. He literally graduated high school the same year we did. We are no longer 27 years old. He clearly is not either. And I was listening to some at the gym today. Mannix was on with Simmons, and he was like, one thing you noticed, because he went to some of those Laker-Grizzly games, is LeBron does look old at times. And now it goes back to back to back to back games.
Right.
If Anthony Davis every game is going to go for 35 and 25, like they're going to have a shot, but hasn't part of Anthony Davis's thing been he's kind of up and down? Now, he was awesome. He's a fucking monster.
Yeah, first of all, he hasn't played 70 games, since 2018, probably. So he's going to.
I just think if LeBron's just kind of going to be a floater who still knows how to play and he's still going to get his numbers, but like can't really just like go Steph or AD. I don't know, man. I think they're going to lose too.
Well, and Slater and Marcus Thompson, I don't know if you heard it, but their point, one of them, or they were both making the point, like, you just go small, Anthony Davis is going to have to guard that big if you take Looney off the floor, and he's not going to be able to patrol the paint the way that he was able to in game 1 when he had, like, 8 shot deflections plus multiple blocks, or 8 alterations plus multiple blocks. So
the one thing, though, is, and this is where the NBA's kind of got weird with going really small to take bigs off, Looney does gather 25 rebounds.
Yeah, he gets all of the rebounds. I agree.
It was basically Looney and Anthony Davis combined for like 78 rebounds. So Anthony doesn't have to come off the floor. It's not ideal.
Wiggins will have to rebound some more. But the point was like with only a day off in between every game, is Anthony Davis just going to stay on the floor and play 41 minutes a game to get those numbers?
Well, I think both of them played well over 40, the two of them.
Yeah, but like this is a 7-game series, right? I know Steph's in shape.
I do think that I'm not going to call it must win, but you could go 2-0 when you were coming home. I do think it's pretty important to win. Would be Thursday night. It does sweet. Like, this is pretty cool. The Kings series couldn't have been any better. It was the highest rated series, and then you get the Lakers and LeBron. And listen, LeBron even said it last night, and I agree. Like, it's just not the same at Chase, which it's a positive. Like, the money, you had to go, but it ain't Oracle. Just like I think the Golden One probably isn't peak Arco. Welcome to the Yankee Stadium, ain't, this isn't 1996. Like, things change.
Yeah.
I do think one thing Laker fans, I'll give them credit, and partly the arena's so fucking massive, right? There's 27,000 people or whatever. It's kind of got the best of both worlds, like the sweet elites, but then it's so big that you can sell the $100 ticket to the guy. It's pretty lit in there. I think Game 3 in LA is gonna be nuts.
What's
capacity? And you've been there. The lighting, how they do it, it's kind of like it's. I think it's gonna. I thought it was like 25,000. I thought it was like one of the biggest.
I have sat in the rafters for a playoff game. What was the series? They blew like a 20-point lead in Game 3, and then got swept, and it was is like Kobe era Lakers.
Oh, is that when Dwight Howard took out the little guy in the Mavericks? Remember?
Yeah.
Remember they were getting killed, and Dwight Howard gave him like a forecheck.
JJ Barea.
Yeah.
So
but
maybe
remember,
I
it
was
was like
what game
one of
did
the
they play?
dirtier hits, and he got kicked
Yeah,
out of the game.
Yeah. Anyway, that's when all of Phil's kids were there wearing like the hat with 12 on it for his last. Maybe that was Phil's last series. I was there for one of those games, and I mean, truly, I needed binoculars. I was so high up in the rafters. It felt like I was at a college basketball game that was being played in a football arena.
Hadn't Kobe just torn his Achilles against the Warriors?
Was that? This says it's 19,000, which is big for basketball.
Maybe I'm hyping it up. I don't know. It feels big.
But it feels that way. No, I think you're right. It definitely feels that way. I just know this, John. I can't go from this to like Nuggets Heat. Are the Heat still in it? I can't go. I can't watch that.
Nuggets pretty good to watch. Here's my other thing on the LA crowd.
The MVP.
I do think they're kind of going to be like, you buy the ticket, like you're not coming to watch old LeBron. Steph's kind of the show, you know. I mean, you're coming to watch the game and the moment, but like Steph's the headliner. He just is.
Well, you know what they have there too? No, you're right. But you know what they also have there is like all the rich, like it's been where the rich people go since like Magic Johnson. So they are used to having to be real fans at Lakers games. You know what I mean? Like it's been the place to be seen for 50 years now. So it's like you don't get to like people know how they're supposed to act. Like you go there to cheer and root the team on.
Yeah, it's like who are those guys in the seventh in the front row? It's like, oh, that's the founder of Roman. That's the founder of Paxlovid. That's the founder of this. You're like, I don't know any of these people, right? Well, if it wasn't for E40, the Warriors have a lot of guys that have unlimited wealth that no one could point out of a lineup.
That's right.
Besides Joe, right?
And Helmuth, the poker guy.
Yeah, when he rolls in, but he's way more recognizable to the average guy our age, I think, than the 45-year-old rich tech founder. Right?
Darnold, Sam Darnold, there he is.
McCaffrey.
Also at Warrior games versus Laker games, like it's so new to like you got to go check out the suites. You got to go. They're there for the basketball. Like we know that in LA, right? They've done all the other stuff. Like the Hollywood, like you are there to be seen on the court watching the game, not to make a deal in the back room because you're paying $50,000 for the spread at your private suite, which is great. It's fine. They have all that. It's great. Joe's got to make the money to pay the luxury tax. Like that's how you get a good team on the floor. I'm all for it. I'm just saying, it's new. It's new.
I'm giving Laker fans credit that their homer. I noticed in the Memphis crowd because part of it they haven't been in the playoffs in a long time. They are a legit playoff crowd, they just are.
Yeah, we're giving them. Yeah, this is pro crowd.
I think Levi's, part of it.
Oh, Andrew
anytime
Bynum,
you get a new
Andrew Bynum, not Dwight Howard.
Anytime you get a new arena, even if you do have like a historic team or a team that's won a lot, there's just a feeling out process. It took Levi's it took them almost like 8 years to come into their own.
Yeah, they had to get good. Play a lot of good game, right? Big games.
And now it feels like, it's never going to be held to the highest of esteem of certain, of around the league, but it's a loud place, right?
Honestly, if they could just shade it a little bit, what would you really shade? You can't change the location, so that is what it is. Shade it, you kind of take away any other complaint, I think. I guess they have to upgrade some.
Only if you're on that side, because if you're not on that side, it's not too bad.
Yeah, or it's a night game. Just play prime time. Andrew Bynum is the one that got tossed for the JJ Barea.
Oh, yeah.
Felt like I spent half my childhood watching my Blazers lose to the Lakers. F that team, LOL.
Totally agree.
Thank you, Yellow Spy.
I ended up on some YouTube short of Rasheed Wallace, and it was like, maybe he was talking with the guys that Up in Smoke. They were all getting stoned, and he was telling this story about when he was like in like 2000, 2001, the PR lady came up to him and says, we want you to be the lead. We want you to do this PSA, and we'll play at the games, and it'll be on it'll be a commercial for local television. He's like, what is it? And it's like, basically it's just don't do drugs. And Rasheed's like, I'd be a raging hypocrite if I did that, given that I'm high right now and I like to smoke weed. And this is 1999. It was just funny. God,
could you imagine if we had a "Don't Do Drugs" Rasheed campaign? That'd be
Sometimes I feel old when I see kind of that guy that's probably 5 or 6 years older than us, clear in their mid-40s, but a lot of those guys, just have the beards, and they just look really gray. And it's like, God, these guys make me feel really old. I mean, Rashid looks like he's 55.
They're like, Kevin Garnett, old head. Wait, Kevin Garnett, old head? What?
Exactly. You see that rant he went on about Looney being tougher than Wiseman? He called Jokic. He called Jokic.
No. I saw some
funny.
other clip of him telling some story about Garden MJ.
He was just talking about Looney, like, Looney, Wiseman's got all these gifts. Looney's got the fucking heart and the balls. Looney can guard, Embiid, Djokovic.
He's got like a degenerative hip, right?
Clearly not anymore, though. Looney's like Kinlaw, but he just is actually good and can play. He played 82 games this year. I think Looney did.
Yeah, I think wasn't he one of 2 or 3 players in the whole league that played every game? And he still looks.
Kinlaw's played 10 in 2 years.
Brad on the stream says, "Hey boys, shaved it." I didn't. Must have been a shave it or save it candidate, Brad. Congratulations. You can email me shave it or save it if you're thinking about shaving your hair or saving your hair to promo code ham@gmail.com. Send us photos. If you don't want your face in it, just let us know. Keep your face out of it, and we can give you a real expert review. Shave it or save it. Brad, congratulations. I hate to lose you on the team, but John's happy to have you.
49ers threw out a picture of Trey that, isn't the most flattering. But, I mean, that's his hair.
I think Trey Young got plugs. We were talking about this before we started. His hair looked a little thicker to me in the playoffs than what it was like in college, even. Trey Young, Hawks. I think he filled him in. Who are you thinking I was talking about?
Lance.
No. Trey Young, Oklahoma, Atlanta Hawks. I think he got plugged.
Gotcha.
They have a similar, kind of hairstyle.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that.
Yeah,
I don't know, like, if you're in your early 20s and you're rich, you're famous, someone probably has to tell you about plugs before you do it, or maybe it's just an insecurity. I don't know. I feel like someone would have to tell you about that. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Because you're not you're not hanging out with people who are like, yeah, I got contacts.
Let's use the Atlanta Hawks. Like, no one in the Atlanta Hawks has plugs, right? There's not a player that it would have plugs.
Is Bogdanovich thinning?
Yeah,
the team owner?
Trey Lance definitely hasn't got plugs.
You sign a deal, and the owner's like, "Hey, man."
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like PR or marketing, it's probably easier for a female to like broach the subject.
Could be. Yep. Could be. All right, John. Let's do. We like doing these videos. A scout's take on Jair Brown from John's time as NFL scout, well connected around the NFL. We've done several of these videos over the years and topics, and they're really good. They're fun. So Jair Brown, Niners pick, number 87 out of Penn State. Highest drafted safety that Lynch and Shanahan have taken. The third safety they've drafted. Talanoa Hufanga was pick 180. Tarvarius Moore was picked 95 out of Southern Miss in 2018. So they obviously like this guy. What have you heard? Who have you talked to? What have you heard around the league about Jair Brown?
Well, after it would have been the first press conference because they didn't do one. It was the first question John Lynch was asked before they got into the kicker. And the first word that came out of his mouth was baller. He is a baller. And everyone I talked to said that, like, once you get drafted past pick 35, 40, 50, you usually have a major flaw. And honestly, most guys out of like the top 15 have a flaw. It's why they don't. And it might be height. It could be speed. It could be production. It could be a stiffness. It could be whatever.
Off field.
But it could be what?
Something off field, right? Red flag.
Yeah, a character issue or whatever. That height, weight, no issues. He's 5'11", 200 plus pounds. Like, he's a safety. He's not a defensive lineman or a linebacker. The knock on him was, I think some people think he's a little stiff and speed. Not play speed. The one thing I was told is, like, play speed is not an issue. He plays fast. And if I remember taking with you when Penn State played that Utah team, that entire Penn State team felt like an NFL team. The speed all over the field. And clearly, this fucking guy was the MVP of that game. So he ran a 4.6, which 4.65, which is not great, right? Ideally, you'd like to get a safety in the 4.5s because ultimately you don't have to be a 4.4 guy because you are behind everyone, so your instincts and reactions can kind of make up for that, quarter second. But football character and football intelligence, which to me at safety is very important. It's probably even more of a thinking man's position than the linebacker because you're taking on way more space even than they are, right? It's probably the closest thing to quarterback in terms of intelligence. I've heard he's elite at that. Like the football character and the football intelligence is off the charts. The production's off the charts. The toughness is off the charts. It's just going to be like his elite measurables as an athlete, are not Earl Thomas when he came out of Texas. But if they had been, you're talking about a guy that's going in the top 40 picks. And it's the reason you can get the guy at pick 87.
Yeah.
But here's what I think the 49ers have realized. And I think they struggle to answer this question because I don't think there's just like a direct answer. Like, why do you guys hit on so many picks like outside the first and second rounds, right? Because ideally you like to hit on all your first and second round picks. I think they go all in on guys and you and I talked about this leading up to the draft. The football character and stuff is like off the charts, right? The Kittles, the Fred Warners, the Hufungas that are like, God, football, the use checks, even their free agents, right? This shit means a lot to these guys. Like as a competitor, as a player, like no one ever questioned once they've kind of gotten Debo after 2020, like you want to go to war with this guy. Biggest moment, McCaffrey fits that. Trent Williams fits that. Bosa fits that. Greenlaw fits that. Charvarius fits that. Yeah, all their core 15 players, because that's the only way you can be that sweet without a quarterback, fit that mold. And I think this guy is in that mold. And I think that's why they go, we can... Honestly, there are some parallels with Hufanga in the sense of Hufanga was two things, really. Positionless. It's like, well, is he a linebacker or is he a safety? And if he is a safety, he's not quite fast enough. This guy is a safety. This guy's not a tweener. This guy is just like, can he roam the field, right? And I think Jimmy Ward's a good example of like, when Jimmy really came into his own, he definitely wasn't the most physically gifted guy on the field, but it's like, I want to fucking go to war with this guy, right? This guy's a playmaker, toughness, versatile, physical. Physicality means a lot to these guys, clearly, I would say. And I think this guy checks that box. And now the question mark's going to be, like, if they had a game tomorrow, it'd be Hufanga and Gibson would be the starters. But, let's just say he had to start. Those two guys, the play speed is really surrounds those two. It's not them, right? It's Warner, Greenlaw, the corners, and Bosa. Because those guys play speed, as we saw with Hufanga at times, like, you'd want to get him in space.
Yeah. So they are more taking advantage of what the front seven can do than they are erasers, cleaning up mistakes of things the front seven didn't do. That's kind of where Hufanga gets into trouble, right, sometimes. But he's really good because of how smart he is of taking advantage of what he has going on in front of him, for the most part.
Yeah, it's why the only way to become like the greatest defense of all time, like in the last decade, it'd be like LOB. Well, they had an elite defensive line, elite linebackers, sweet corners, and then Earl Thomas could cover the entire ground. And then Chancellor was like their Hufanga times 5. So it's like they had it all.
Yeah.
Where most defenses that are even really, really good usually have 2 of their 11 starters. You go, this guy, if they could, they would upgrade, right? It's hard to upgrade at most positions. Like, you could upgrade Ward with like 3 corners in the league, right? But he's not really an upgradable player. Right, Warner's not an upgrade. Bosa, Armstead, like those guys are. But I would say that their safeties just have some flaw, just speed. I mean, I just think speed's a flaw. But you can make up for speed at safety just like you can make up for arm strength at quarterback with your head. And it's one position, like you can't really make up as a defensive end with your head, right? I mean, you can take a bad angle on like a play action pass, but for the most part, like you either got the goods or you don't. At safety, it's like, you can get by with fucking brains. I mean, Gibson last year is a good example. Dude was just a free agent on the market. I think they signed him when? Like, was that in camp?
Yeah, that was like after an injury. Right after an injury, right before an injury. Maybe right before an injury.
I think it was just like early in camp. They got a body. Remember Kyle had known him in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And even Kyle talked about, like, he's a good example to show young players of, like, he's an older player in how he goes about it with his head. So I'm a big believer in that with safety, because most safeties are not going to be like Charles Woodson or Rod Woodson or Ed Reed, you know. Most guys, like, but there is a big difference of, like, I feel pretty good about my safety position, and, like, God, it's kind of a weakness. And I think they feel pretty good about the intelligence back there, and they've bet on that. They've bet on football intelligence and physicality.
Last two safeties from big time colleges, right? The first safety they took was not a USC or Penn State. It was Southern Miss, Tarvarius. And look, Jimmy Ward had a really good career, and he was Northern Illinois.
Yeah.
But I do wonder, like, I've wondered about the safety position because it's the position John Lynch played, and how he views it. And I wonder if they see him. It feels like it's some of the rep about Hufanga. Like, you're making a lot of Hufanga comps because it feels like it's some of the same stuff. Jaquan Brisker. Does it help that Jaquan Brisker got drafted out of Penn State last year and had a really good year for the Bears? Around, what did I tell you? Pick 75. It was a little higher. Remember, that was a guy. I remember a lot of Niner fans wanted him, but he had a really good year. He was a good player.
Yeah, I mean, I just went to Jair's rival page. I mean, this is something like in a draft meeting, you start talking about them when they're in high school. And Penn State, who, I wouldn't say they're quite like Ohio State, Bama, or Georgia, but wouldn't you say, like, when you do these recruiting shows, like, I mean, they're talked about like as a top 10 program in the country, right? James Franklin, the recruiter.
Yeah, that's part of why they've gotten criticism at times, is because they recruit well, and it hasn't translated to like CFP appearances.
An underrated place where you get a lot of respect in a draft room is, like, you go to a program that's fucking loaded, right? 5 stars every position, 4 stars every position. It's like, actually, he was the lowest rated recruit in his class. Like, I'm looking, he's a 3-star recruit. Other programs recruited him.
Junior college.
Yeah, I mean, like Kent State, Maryland, Texas Tech, and then you just come in and you
high school recruiting.
Yeah. Now, it could have been maybe wasn't a great student, but
I don't know. Him and Brisker both went to, it's a famous. Is it in Pennsylvania? Lackawanna? Is that in PA?
Yeah, that's where he's from.
Yeah, so they both played there together, and then went
Lackawanna Community College.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a community college has 2 safeties that get drafted in the top 100 picks of an NFL draft back-to-back years? How good that community college is? I mean, were there some dudes that never played Division I? They got fucking destroyed by those 2 guys. Do you think they throw flags in community college football like they do in the NFL for targeting and stuff? Probably not as much.
Probably there's not, I would guess, a medical observer, quite as dialed.
One thing you can't teach with a DB, in my opinion, like I can, clearly there are improvements with, actually I think this is a good parallel. With running backs, like once you get to the pros, I'm telling you, you either have the instincts or you don't. Like, you have the instincts to hit holes. There's a natural feel. Like, I think that's why Elijah Mitchell is just like, when the guy's on the field, he just has a natural instincts to play. Yeah. I think Frank Gore's instincts were all-time great, right? It's why he played for 20 years, even when he was slow as me or you. And I think with DBs, like, the instinct of making plays on the ball, you kind of just got it or you don't. Like, Sherman just had, and this is Richard's thing, like, people overhype, like, speed at corner. Like, you can't teach what I had. And now part of what made Richard, he was so tall, but also,
and he was a receiver in college.
Yes, ball skills were elite. You either find the ball or you don't. And this guy, his production on the ball is fantastic. Picks, PBUs, because you got to tackle, right? I mean, like, and I think if you're going to play next to Hufanga, who is really just going to be, if he stays healthy, one of the best tacklers in the league, you would like a guy with some more ball skills next to him. I would say Jimmy Ward had pretty good ball skills, right? Gibson last year had good ball skills. More when he's been healthy, I would say.
Tart
probably be, part of Tart's negative is, like, what does he do well? He doesn't really do anything specifically well. So it's like, I feel good about this guy's ball skills.
Yeah.
Which is not something you teach, because part of it's like you're in space. You kind of get in no man's land. Like, it's easy to be How bad. And part of, I would say also in this conference, whether that's fair or not, it kind of has an NFL feel when you watch like Saturday morning, just like a lot more like 2 tight end sets with different teams you play, a lot more just
kind of what the SEC felt like maybe it used to be a little bit of, right?
I would say the SEC's turned into more of the NFL meets the Big 12 a little bit.
Yeah.
You know? But I think when you play Iowa, when you play Michigan, when you play Wisconsin, their just offense sometimes looks like it just looks like the New York Giants or the Minnesota Vikings or just whatever. Just their sets, their formations. It's not as much.
Doesn't make it overly impressive. Like their quarterbacks are, you think back on their quarterbacks last year, not impressive for the most part, but it creates defensive players and offensive linemen and just guys that are ready for physicality.
Zerline and his thing compared him to Ryan Clark. And one thing, Ryan Clark, I think, was an undrafted free agent out of LSU, who obviously went on to have a long career and was a fucking badass. I mean, Ryan Clark, little like John Lynch. I mean, it'd be harder for them to play now because they would kill you, like legitimately knock you out. Because when Ryan Clark left, they replaced him with the dude Al Davis. Maybe Ryan Clark played with him. Al Davis, safety from Ohio, who tested really well, became a really good player. His name slips my mind.
From Ohio University?
University of Ohio. Al Davis drafted him like the top 10. No, it might have been a second-round pick. I forget his name.
They play together in Pittsburgh?
I thought so. Chat will probably know the.
Yeah, we'll. Al Davis. Dave Ziegler said he gets chills every day. He feels Al.
Mike Mitchell. Yeah.
Thank you. Good job, Aaron. Ziegler says he gets chills every day in the building. He feels Al's presence.
I think one thing they've gotten away from, like with kind of premium picks, and I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer. For example, Ziegler, the guy they took, from Texas Tech. It's a little more. It's like the polar opposite of Cleveland, who like Cleveland just was going to be what he was going to be. That's a weird pick. Just it's hard to compare that to anyone. But you know what I mean? Like they did. Like this guy could be a great pick.
You're saying you couldn't have put Cleveland or Solomon Thomas on like the best defensive. Well, you did. You put him on Solomon on one of the best defensive line. It just there was a ceiling. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I'm saying the guy they took it from Texas Tech. The 49ers don't do as much of that, and when they have, they've gotten burned. Like they kind of did it with Kinlaw, and even Kinlaw, like when he's been healthy, I thought he'd be better. Maybe he's just never healthy. But I think when you take like those athletic attribute flyers, the 49ers just have not had success. I'd say the Raiders have not had much success at all doing that.
Yeah, I mean, there's bust, and then there's like, is Javon Kinlaw, who's going to be in the league longer, Javon Kinlaw or Solomon Thomas?
Solomon Thomas.
Or Cleveland Furl.
I mean, honestly, guy, there's a chance if this year does not go well Cleveland not going anywhere. And Solomon's in the league right now. I think he's on the Jets. So if Kinlaw has an awful year, right, goes on injured reserve knee, he could be out of the league by next year. And part of it's just his knee shot.
Right.
I'd say 50-50. If you tell me, John, he ends up missing most of the season injuries, I'd be like, he's staring out of the league. And there's a difference. Like, you see, like, Shaq. I didn't see it, but I saw a headline like said Dylan Brooks is going to be out of the league next year. I was like, no, he's not.
What?
Dylan Brooks is going to sign like a $50 million contract. But then there are just guys that when you factor in injuries and just like, what do you even do? Like, ultimately, Cleveland and Solomon Thomas, like we always said, if you put those guys in the 4th round, you look up like, damn, that guy played for a decade? That's
he's going to have, outside of the draft pick, a good career.
Solomon's a good example, right? Plays 4 years for the Niners, a year for the Raiders. Now he's on the Jets. Like, is he going to play for 5 teams for 11 years? And be like, his thing is he should have been pick 78, not pick 3.
Yeah, pretty wild gap, right? You could, because if he was pick 33, you'd say like, yeah, that was not a good pick.
That's why, and I told you this before. I saw what's his name? Jeremy Fowler tweet out the graphic of over the last, whenever the new CBA started in like 2011 with the 5th-year options, the percentages. But this year specifically, 12 first-round options were exercised the 5th year, right? And a lot of them were like Burrow, Herbert, Justin Jefferson. Even Ayuk was probably, of the group, is like one of the no-brainers compared to the Kinlaws of the world. And I texted to a couple buddies in the NFL, and they're like, not every guy, just because you don't pick up the 5th-year option, it was a bad pick for that team. But a lot of guys in that group will go on to have 9-year careers. It's more of a reflection. It was just a bad value pick, but the guy's not necessarily a bad player. You just move on because typically when you draft a guy in the first round, you've kind of been paying a higher number, so the finances don't match up. And there's just that elephant in the room of you didn't live up to the pick, so you just have to move on. But so if Solomon Thomas could just play for the 49ers if he was like their last defensive lineman.
Right.
Cleveland Farrell literally is on the team, Arden Key was on the team. I mean, all these names are like, you're just going to look up. These guys are going to play for a long time. Arden Key's a good example of, Arden Key was a 3rd-round pick. Now, he didn't do much with the Raiders, but like, he then went to the Jags, had a solid season, then he got signed with the Titans. We view Arden Key as like more of like, it's a solid story. A 3rd-round pick, 9-year career, where Farrell and Thomas are like, bust.
Right.
When really they're all the same player. They should have just been drafted around the same number.
Isaiah Simmons, no 5th-year option picked up. Right, that was the 8th overall pick by the Cardinals. Remember, it was like, where's he going to play? Who cares? Great athlete. Damon Arnett, not a good player.
Ruggs pleaded guilty.
Ruggs, not a player. Jalen Reagor, not a good player, it turns out, and bad draft to take the wrong receiver in the 1st round. Patrick Queen, solid player, right?
Yes, I mean plays.
They got a new linebacker. Clyde Edwards, hard with running backs, but
I thought he was sweet. Maybe it was the team. I don't know.
You mean when they got him or in Kansas City?
I remember watching LSU. I'm like, God, this little guy's fucking badass.
I mean, Kinlaw is on the list of just.
Well, Becton is one. Yeah. Injured, not productive too.
Not that pick at 33 wouldn't have worked. That pick at 43 would not have worked. That pick at 102 is not working.
You could argue it should be 11. Like, is Tua, given what he's done, a 5th-year option for every
23 team? Million? No, or 23 million. No, but like would Jeff Okudah be a 5th-year option guy who got traded or whatever the hell happened with him?
I don't think so.
For the 3rd pick. There was one other. Ruggs was trending to being one.
I would say, yeah. Ruggs is like his own unique situation.
Yeah. I just mean in terms of like, did the team make did they evaluate the talent properly?
Ruggs in a different world than like the Kinlaws and the Raegers when he was on the field.
But like Tua, 23 million, Derek Brown's 5th-year option, 11.6 for the Panthers.
Honestly, it's why if you like a tight end a lot, isn't the smart move to take them really high just because he's so cheap for so long?
Yeah, we've talked about it. Like it is incredible value.
Because you take some of these other positions hit on, it gets really expensive.
Yeah. Thoughts on Chase Young? Yeah, he was a guy who looked for sure like he'd 5th-year option, extension. Is it worth a flyer to get a bookend of that caliber across from Bosa or not worth it? There has been some talk that the Niners now they restructured McCaffrey, and now they can actually there's a bunch of famous pass rushers like Jadeveon Clowney out there. Not like Jadeveon Clowney. Jadeveon Clowney is one of them, and there's a few other guys who at one point in time were primetime pass rushers. But
one thing I would say about Clowney is people probably weren't paying attention because the Browns were a shit show. Week 18, he was sent home. They fucking hated him there. He does not feel like a cultural fit. Chase Young, pretty fascinating. Not going to lie. Pretty fascinating player. Just a one-year flyer. But I would say it wouldn't just be you walk in, you're the only bid on the home. I mean,
right.
Wouldn't there be a lot of teams? His salary this year is not that big, and actually, it's not small because he was the second pick in the draft. So he makes, if you trade it for him, he makes $8 million a year. So, like you said, they have the money because they boosted it out. But I would imagine a lot of people would come sniffing, especially in training camp, because most teams, like the Atlanta Falcons don't view themselves as shitty yet. So if you're the Atlanta Falcons, you're like, we'll give you 2 threes, or who knows? I don't know what his value is, but you're not just competing against like 3 other playoff teams like you might in the trade deadline. If they're willing to trade him during training camp, which if you were the football team, Commanders, wouldn't you just play it out, see if he's any good? Like, wouldn't you just?
Yeah, because what are you getting for him? Are you getting a second-round pick for him?
I think the only way you'd get a second-round pick for him is if he was really good, and then wouldn't you just be like, well, maybe we'll just ride this out?
Yeah.
Because he's not this isn't a slot receiver. He's a pass rusher.
Now that you haven't picked up his option, what are you going to – let's say he has a great year this year, and you're the Commanders.
He's 24 years old.
Are you going to – if he has a great year, are you going to give him a big extension? Or are you going to say, odds are he gets hurt again? We can't give him a big extension.
One thing I read was part of the hesitation wasn't even just injuries. It was like he came on the scene hot. I think he had like 8 sacks, 7.5 sacks as a rookie. And then I don't, I think he's a powerful player. I think he's kind of like a Clowney-esque poor man's version of Clowney, where it's like, well, what's his great attribute besides just power and strength? I draft you second overall. I'm kind of looking for Bosa, Joey Bosa, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons. But I don't know.
Justin Houston is available, and Yannick Ngakoue. Yeah, there's a list of like I'm trying to find the full list of available defensive ends.
Yeah, here's what I think happens is those type guys, they're all rich, especially at Houston. So it's like, am I just signing right now a veteran minimum contract, or do I I'd play for $5 million, but I'm also chilling at my house in Jupiter, Florida, or in Dallas, Texas. And then you're like, actually, I'm kind of bored. I'm not going to play. I'm better off at least. You give me some incentives, play for the veteran minimum. I can make up to 3.5.
Yeah.
Usually that comes closer for after OTAs, the first week of training camp, and we're like, God, we need some of these.
Don't you think?
I think some of it's those guys. Ngakoue and Houston aren't the same level, but if you're Justin Houston, you're probably a year or 2 away from definitely turning in the paperwork for retirement. But it's I'd play 10 snaps for a sweet team for the right amount of cash.
Don't you think if you're sitting on the couch and your agent calls and he's like, hey, here's what the incentives are. You hit these incentives, you can make another $5 million. If you're a receiver, it's like, oh, fuck. Because the incentive for a receiver is like, all right, 75 catches, 9 touchdowns. For a pass rusher, it's like, all right, 8 sacks. You're like, fuck, I just got to 8 times get to the quarterback? I can lollygag for 28, 30 to 70% of my snap. You know what I mean? I can see if you're a pass rusher, 8 sacks. I can do 8 sacks in my sleep. I just got to win 8 snaps.
Well, then you start thinking too, you're like, well, they're going to double team Aaron Donald or Nick Bosa every play. That means I'm going to get some, and I'm only going to play 12 snaps a game.
Put me next to Eric Armstead. They're going to want me to succeed.
Yeah. But all those guys, end up getting workouts and, teams. It just comes down to, if you're them, you're probably hesitant to play for a shitty team. Who Justin Houston play for last year? Was
Ravens?
Yeah, right. So he's kind of it's been the Ravens. Was it the Chargers a couple years ago?
Colts.
Or the Colts. He's been trying to kind of do the NBA thing. Where it's can I catch lightning in the bottle and get on a team that's in the second round of the playoffs? And it hasn't quite worked out yet, but kind of pretty clear what he's trying to do here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It'd be hard pressed to see would he just hey, you want to come to Houston and be a veteran mentor? That doesn't seem like the business he's in. Where in Ngakoue, it's something's off there.
Another name. Yeah.
Who was the Eagles traded for him last year? Bad back.
Robert Quinn's been on 5 teams in 5 years.
Yeah, man.
He was an All-Pro in 2013. It's been a while.
It's 2023.
Anthony Davis was playing like full 71 game seasons back then.
I was watching the game last night. I was thinking, every Kings fan I know is like, Sabonis fucking guy. If Sabonis, who's going to be a third-team All-NBA, if that's what third-team All-NBA looks like, if I'm Anthony Davis, I'll be like, listen, I don't play enough games. You don't put me on the All-NBA team. That guy on his fucking best day couldn't dream about holding my jock. Couldn't dream about it.
Like, it's the argument for there should be a team where there is no second and third team. There's just, this is the team. There's no, I'm a second-team All-NBA, because that's not All-NBA. That's another thing. All-NBA is that guy. Yeah, that's true. And there should be a team like, if he played 82, he'd be All-NBA, but he just chooses to play 61.
Yeah, listen, if Anthony Davis is healthy and plays 70-plus games, he is in a different stratosphere than every big guy beside like Joel Embiid and Jokic.
Yeah, but John, consistency, what is it? Availability is the best ability. It's like,
yeah, part of it until we get to the playoffs and your availability, you're a very flawed player. Like, yeah, Kirk Cousins plays every game, but once I get to the playoffs, like, you're in some trouble, buddy.
Well, that's right. It's I was thinking that watching last night, like, who cares? Anthony Davis, like, everyone's been talking about my game. What am I this? Am I that for the last 5 years? Just let me know when the playoff chase starts, and I'll look like this guy, right?
Yeah,
and that's you're the best player on your team that's trying to win a championship. Availability, if that's his best quality, you're probably not winning a championship.
All I know is this:
DeMontis is not their best player. De'Aaron Fox is, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, but the problem is, like, if Anthony Davis is your second best player, now technically right now he's your first, but like he would have a chance to have a moment where it's like no one could ever say shit about the guy, regardless how many injuries he's had, right?
Because he'll be the one to carry him.
If he led the Lakers to a real championship and just was doing like 32s and 20s every game, I mean, that's Google what Shaq and Kobe were doing. Shaq's numbers kind of look like that. I thought I was watching like the NBA softer than it was in Shaq's days. Like that modern, he's blocking shots, hitting jumpers, dunking, alley-oops, outlet passes, running. It's like, fuck it, the Warriors, not much they can do with this guy.
No, even it was clear like the Warriors were not, the rim hasn't been protected like that in a long time.
A lot of little Steph floaters.
Not other guys. A lot of other guys that you can't practice against Anthony Davis.
That little scoop floater that looks incredible against the Kings was not working.
No. That's why you go small. You pull my.
Do you think he could hit that shot from like 15 feet?
I bet he could. Maybe not in a game, but who was I hearing? Somebody was saying the other day. Maybe I was in the car. Tolbert, like I was listening to the game, some of the Game 7 the other day. That they thought Steph was actually lining up a hook shot at one point, but he got like across the lane hook shot, but he got fouled. Yeah, a little Kareem.
Dude's just bored.
He plays, but sometimes he play. That's what makes him cool. Is he plays bored sometimes in Game 7s. I got a sneaky Niner signing that caught my attention, John. Undrafted free agent Jack Coletto out of Oregon State, Jonathan Smith, friend of the program. He won last year the award for the most versatile player in college football. They call it the Paul Hornung Award. Guys used
remember him, yeah.
Guys used to play all the positions back in the day. He's a junior college quarterback who then came to Oregon State and played quarterback. Then they moved him. He played linebacker and like. I would call it like H, but they would line him up at quarterback and have him just run like quarterback sweeps and score
like Taysom Hill. When you
Taysom Hill, he would throw it sometimes. He would sometimes line up at like kind of H tight end, and he caught a touchdown pass. He's not. I would.
He had the walk-off touchdown against the Dogs
against Fresno State. Yeah. So he's 6'3". He's about 240. Smart, right? You play that many positions, play linebacker. So I think Kyle would like him. Can throw the football a little, played quarterback, good, multi-sport kind of baseball, basketball, Gatorade Player of the Year in the state of Washington. Like he was a legitimate high school quarterback in the state of Washington that produces good high school football players. Then he plays for Jonathan Smith, which is a hard-nosed, tough defense and a creative offense.
Did the University of Washington and Pete not want him? Or was he just obviously couldn't play quarterback
Well, he went to junior college first. I don't know maybe he still wanted to play quarterback coming out of junior college because that's what he did his first year at Oregon State, and Washington has had a really crowded quarterback room for several years.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what happened there. But they made him into a Swiss Army knife. And, like, to me, he makes a lot of sense for the 49ers in terms of, I don't think he's a Juszczyk replacement because Kyle is so athletic and it's like he's not the pass catcher that Kyle is. I don't know, like, what kind of, he does some lead blocking, whatever.
Could he play tight end?
Yeah, again, not as athletic as Kyle would be as a pass catcher, but he did play a little bit. They just moved him around. I think, again, more like H, but they did line him up and throw him a ball. They've thrown him the ball before, so he's a little bit of a chess piece, but I think you'd feel comfortable with him. Like, I think he's a little Juszczyk insurance. I don't think you're not replacing Kyle Juszczyk with this guy and getting Kyle Juszczyk because Kyle's so unique. But, the other thing, the Niners, Jimmy was an incredible quarterback sneaker. If you put Jack Coletto in the game, they kind of know what you're going to do. But sometimes they knew what you're going to do with Jimmy. The Niners lose a little there. I just think there's a chance this guy, they got to find a roster spot for him, which is hard on this team. But that's an interesting one to me, Jack Coletto to the Niners.
I would guess a lot of teams were sniffing around him as
the Hammer. That was his nickname in college, the Hammer.
I like that. The 49ers have a hard
the jackhammer, actually.
Pac-12 guys, huh? They love drafting a good.
Yeah, I mean they would like him. But I could see Kyle and Jonathan Smith getting along and talk. I don't know how much they. But I think it's interesting. Keep an eye on Jack Coletto.
I will.
You saw him. You liked him. I mean, he's a big guy.
Oh yeah. I mean, I liked whatever. Is Oregon State, did they lose a little bit? Like, are they going to still be really good this year?
Yeah. I mean, they lost a lot of their guys in the secondary. But as you saw, like, only one of them got drafted.
I guess the tight end got hurt on that final drive against Fresno State. Never played again.
Musgrave was hurt last year anyway. They get DJU. Their offensive line is going to be legit again. Their running backs are good.
Did Musgrave catch a long pass on that final drive, and that was the injury, and he never played again?
I think he was already kind of hurt on that play. And maybe then he like really got hurt and had to come out.
Yeah. And then the Hammer knocked it in,
and then the jackhammer scored.
The Hammer scored because they went for 2, right, to end it. Yeah, with the jackhammer.
So I don't know. I mean, again, we love having these conversations. Here's a guy, he could be interesting. Then it comes time to make your 53-man roster, and it's hard to find a spot.
Yeah.
But
you don't have to make the 53-man roster. You just have to impress enough to get on the practice squad, and then injuries happen, and that's how you get on. If you're on the practice squad and they really like you, sometimes with an offensive lineman, like there's no rotation, but a lot of these other positions, like there's a very good chance that you get elevated throughout the season. People get hurt. I mean, I don't care what team you are, and especially this fucking squad. Holy cannoli!
Well, then at minimum he's Juszczyk insurance. He's more versatile than I think Josh Hokett, right? Who's been the Niners' other kind of fullback in the past.
Yeah, the Fresno State guy.
Yeah.
Well, they just don't really exist. It's sad, we were fullback people. Low Neal, Juszczyk, but it's just. You're not going to turn on the television on Saturday, and I bet if you looked around on Friday, when I was in high school football, every single high school football team had a fullback. I would guess the major programs in all these major states, you'd be hard-pressed to find a team that does any more than like one running back. And I bet they use their tight end a lot in the slot. I mean, I bet if we looked around, the majority of high school offenses at the highest level programs are all spread. How would you not be? It's just the easiest thing to do and have success with.
Yeah, that body type, that guy's probably your right tackle in most high schools, right?
Yeah, 6'3", 250. I mean,
but I just mean like your 5'11", 250 fullback at a lot of high schools might just end up as one of your offensive linemen.
Oh, for sure, your center.
Who's that big fullback that USC had like 15 years ago?
Brandon Hancock,
yeah. Big neck, Brandon Hancock.
Yeah, he's got a Clovis West guy, right?
Clovis West. Clovis West, yeah.
Rumors had it, that might have been on the McGuire Sosa Berry.
Oh, it was the early 2000s, John.
Yeah. I'm not here to judge.
What did Jordan Love just sign for? $14 million.
Yes, yeah, I think 13.
Who got more, him or Randall Cobb?
I mean, Aaron, it's like sometimes it's good to be friends with the right people, you know. And the crazy thing is, Randall. It's weird because everyone's like, Randall's a great guy. It's not like he's like some loser that only Aaron likes, right? It's just if Aaron Rodgers was just, Jimmy Garoppolo, would Randall Cobb's career have been over 3 years ago? Like, would he just been like doing the next part of his life? Pretty incredible. Like he's gonna have to look back and just send Christmas cards consistently to Aaron.
This is he at least got 2 more years, right? Because he played 21 and 22 with the Packers. So this is now year 3 he's getting.
Yeah.
After playing,
I would say for 1,000,000% the last 2, you could convince me in 21 like Tampa brought him in, as when Scotty Miller went down or whatever.
Caught 28
These
balls
last 2 years, it was clear. It's like
he caught 28 balls that year.
The whole thing was Gutekunst's like, who are we arguing over? I'm on Gutekunst's side here.
Yeah.
So many GMs, and part of it is just there are more of these. There are just a ton more Aaron Rodgers in the NBA than there are. They don't really exist in football. Because even Tom, like, what Tom really asked for Gronk? Like, fuck yeah, bring him. Can you imagine if there were more and more of this? Like, if there are 10 of these, they're like, I need, just start listening. Like, Frank Gore's my guy. Bring, just like all these type guys. It would happen. It happens in the NBA constantly. Tristan Thompson is on the bench for the Lakers. And in basketball, like your 12th guy doesn't play. But like if you're dressed in an NFL game, most times you go into the game at some point, right? Injuries, special teams.
Yeah, it'd be like if you took a player who retired after 6 years and just made him a GM of a team in football, the team that you would end up with. Right?
Oh my God.
What position do you think would do the worst job of not becoming a GM eventually? Like you played 6 years in the league, career-ending knee injury, you become a GM tomorrow. What position, like, who would be most likely just to, I know this guy, I know this guy, I know this guy. Could be quarterbacks. They would build a whole offensive line off people they know.
I just don't see how receivers would know anything about the trenches, like who to get and who not to get.
They would build teams based on the guys they played like 7-on-7 college football with.
Oh my God! Like they'd have like 7 DeAndre Hopkins on their team.
But
he's obviously younger. I mean, they would. It's a little harder in the NFL because Randall probably is still good enough where it's not a total embarrassment, but he's close enough where the GM knows, like, we would not keep this guy on the team if it was our choice. Yeah. You get to the point pretty quick where it's like, this is not this is impossible. But I wonder if some skill guys can convince themselves, like, yeah, he doesn't practice well, whatever.
You know who I think would build the worst team? A running back. Because the game is not for them anymore, but they would build a team like it is all about them.
Yeah.
They're just like 5 of you potties.
Yeah, no ability to pass block.
There'd be 4 of them on the team. Like, this just.
I could see defensive guys
would have to block. It'd be like only receivers who block.
I could see defensive guys not caring that much about the quarterback. Just kind of playing like you did in the 80s. Let's just run it, play good D, load up our D.
Defensive guy would be like Fields. I don't want to face Fields every week. We got to get Fields. Like a pass rusher. It'd be like, Fields is our quarterback. Just somebody who runs. That and DBs would not. They'd be like Fields. That's miserable to play against that guy because I got to tackle him all day. I'd rather just cover. I feel like defensive guys would get quarterbacks, like super mobile quarterbacks on their team.
Yeah, because they're not as consumed. Defensive linemen aren't like accuracy. Like they don't even. I'm just chasing the guy.
Mobility. They just don't want a guy that's exhausted.
The ball after it leaves his hands. Like
we were always so tired.
Cover the fucking guy. Mercedes Lewis is next. You watch.
The next Jet.
Yeah. Put in perspective, Mercedes Lewis was just put into the UCLA Athletic Hall of Fame.
Who was the guy that Aaron was mad about, the tight end? He was right too, right?
Tanyan.
Was it Tanyan? But they kept Tanyan. Tanyan
No,
good.
it
There's
was
another
it
guy.
was it was a guy
Somebody else
before.
signed, and then he had a touchdown against them. And
There was one guy I remember who was mad about like a practice squatter. He's like, if they would ask me, I would have told them not to cut him. And the guy had like 3 career catches. It was about principle, Like he didn't even ask me. Though I've watched a couple Aaron interviews, he does feel just very positive and happy right now. Like he's just in a good spot. Like went to the game last night with Sauce. He's gone like 3 straight games, like 2 MSG games and a hockey game.
I saw a tweet. Somebody retweeted. Maybe was it one of the like Nagler or one of the Packer guys, and it was like Aaron Rodgers. I don't. Maybe it wasn't Nagler, but somebody was like, Aaron Rodgers trying a new tactic, not being shitty to his teammates. It was a picture of him and Sauce. I don't know.
Yeah,
Aaron was chugging beers with what's his name from Bakhtiari?
Gukowski, yeah, Bakhtiari.
Or was that 2 different events?
That was Bakhtiari chugging the beer. Remember, he did the sip because he was with the owner's daughter, who's like half his age.
Yeah.
You watch. Rodgers gonna have a famous girlfriend this year. I'd put money on that in New York. Feels like that's where we're headed.
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, if it was worth being his girlfriend when he was in Green Bay, it's definitely worth being his girlfriend in New York.
It's got up 10.
Just in terms of like making your, like getting more famous or whatever.
Also easy, like you get to also kind of live where you want. Like you kind of had to like spend some time there. You probably didn't want to, especially in the winter. It's cold.
Yeah, that's right. You don't want to come visit.
Yeah.
All right. On that note, Jake Kumaro. Jake Kumaro. Thank you, Mark, on the chat. That was the guy that it all.
He got mad about Charles Woodson, who remember when the Raiders signed was like 37 years old. He likes his old players. I mean, he has a lot of parallels with LeBron, like old players. He wants old veteran players.
Yeah, because the last thing you want is somebody in the wrong place. You just don't have the patience for that.
Would you totally blame him if you were in his shoes? Like, would you want to fuck with young guys who don't know what you're doing?
Well, I mean, like, I might need them.
Yeah.
Ideally, it's just Devontae, younger and knows exactly what to do. Eventually. Took a while, though. Took a couple of years.
Yeah, but they didn't see eye to eye, really.
Yeah. All right. On that note, thanks for hanging, everybody. Later.